Hello everyone, I recently did a video that outlined the whole buying process, and now I want to do the same thing except for selling your home. So when we list a home, there's a few different steps, and I want to sort of outline all the critical steps to selling your home. So first, before we actually even sign a listing agreement, there's a few critical steps that go into making sure you have a smooth home sell. So really the most important aspect of selling your home is the pricing. What I do for pricing is I'll do a comparative market analysis, also known as a CMA. And this CMA will basically look at homes that have sold in the past 6 months in your immediate neighborhood. So I try to get it within a couple of streets. And basically this gives me a great price per square foot for comparable properties. So I'll look at things like finishings in the home, square footage, year of the home, things like that to really get a good price per square foot. And this is what I use to give my price recommendation of what to list your home. So the CMA is really the driving factor of what I think your home will sell for. In addition to a CMA, I like to see the home in person as well. That way I can really gauge the condition, and if you have any extra features, maybe you've put in a pool or you've upgraded the whole kitchen, things like that that I can't necessarily see online. This will help me either adjust the price up or down as necessary. So after we've determined the list price that we're comfortable with listing the home at, there's a couple of other documents that we'll need to gather prior to listing the home. The first is what's called a seller's disclosure notice. The seller's disclosure notice is a document in Texas that outlines all of the known defects in the property and just general information on the property. In addition, we'll need to gather any recent home inspections that you may have done on the property, if any. And this will just be necessary information that we have to disclose to the buyer. In addition to the seller's disclosure notice, we'll have what's called a survey. The survey you should have gotten with your closing documents. I'll send out an example of what a survey is. This is important because if we don't have one, it does cost about $400 to order a new survey. So this will just help you reduce any costs that you have as well. And then finally, we'll do what's called a net sheet. A net sheet basically will let you know how much you can expect to make on the sale of your property after expenses and taxes and things like that. So after we have all the necessary paperwork, that's when we'll sign our listing agreement. And after we sign our listing agreement, which will outline the price that we're comfortable listing it for, the commission percentage, the listing term, how long we're going to list the home for. Here in El Paso, we only do professional photos and videos, which is very important because this is really the face of your listing and what we're putting out to the world for your listing. So we want it to look as good as possible. As we're coordinating for the photos, that's when we'll also put up a lockbox and a sign on your property as well. And once we have all these three things done, your listing is ready to go active. Once your listing is active, it's important that we allow for as many buyer showings as possible. This will generate a max interest in your property. And really our goal here is to get several offers or at least several interested parties. And especially that first week or first weekend is very critical to getting maximum offers and getting maximum interest in the property to get it sold as fast as possible. So once the home is on the market, we're getting interest, we're getting offers. Once the home is listed, that's when we'll continue to market your property through a variety of channels. This will include online, social media, and print marketing. In addition to that, we'll also send out your listing to every member of our database, especially interested buyers and other real estate agents who may be looking for a property like yours. So there's a couple of important things to keep in mind when we get offers. A couple of extra steps that I take to make sure that our transaction will be as smooth as possible is speaking with the buyer's lender prior to accepting an offer. This is very important because you want to make sure the buyer has a solid pre-approval prior to going under contract with them. And there's some few things to watch out for. A lot of the pre-approvals you'll want to make sure that the lender has actually verified all of their credit and all of their income in writing prior to accepting their offer. In addition to this, you want to make sure there's no contingencies that the buyer has with their financing. A great example of this would be if they had to possibly sell their current home before qualifying for another home. This is just important. You just want to verify. So this is something that I do as your real estate agent to make sure that the person we're going under contract with is actually fully qualified and ready to close. Once we're under contract, there's a couple of things that are happening. The buyer's prepping all of their loan documents. In addition to that, the buyer is going to be scheduling a home inspection. This inspection is important because we can expect a lot of buyers to ask for certain repairs to be done or maybe even certain credits. Obviously, our goal here is to minimize that as much as possible for you so it's not eating into your proceeds on the sale. But just be prepared to get an amendment for some repairs if there's a few things wrong with the house. Obviously, this is all negotiable as well. So if they're asking for something outrageous, we don't have to do it. A general rule of thumb I like to tell my sellers is that if another buyer would ask for this reasonably, we should probably get it taken care of now. That way we don't have the same problem in the future. And the buyers can actually terminate right now if they feel that the repairs on the house are too much. That's a great rule of thumb just to avoid any problems and keep them under contract, especially if it is a great offer. Once we've cleared the inspection hurdle, the next portion of being under contract, we're really waiting on the appraisal to be back. Sometimes this can be a long process because appraisers can take a while to get to the property and actually get the report out to us. So there might be this lull while you're under contract when we're just waiting for the appraisal to come back. What we're really waiting for the appraisal is two things. We want to make sure that the price meets the appraised value. If not, then we'll have to renegotiate either the price or the buyer will have to come up with funds to cover closing. It really just depends because the appraisal does stick with a property for 6 months. So we want to make sure that we're actually getting as much as we can for the property. And this is sort of a negotiation between the buyer and the seller, and it's really different for every transaction. This is why it's so important to price your home correctly and really base it off that market analysis that I've done beforehand. The appraisers will basically follow the same process that I use for a comparative market analysis. So it's important to just price your home correctly up front. That way we avoid any issues with the appraisal on the back end. In addition to that, sometimes lenders will have certain required repairs that they need done in order to fund the loan. I use the same rule of thumb for this as well. If another buyer would reasonably ask for this, then we should probably take care of it. If it's something outrageous, then we can kind of look at negotiating that as well. So once we're done with the inspection and the appraisal, now we're just waiting on a clear to close from the buyer's lender. And this will take a couple of days to get this out. And then once we have that, we're waiting on the lender to send docs to the title company. And then we're ready to close, really. The process can be done if you're out of state or even out of the country. You can close remotely. We'll just need to coordinate for a notary to either meet you somewhere or you can sign in front of a notary and have the documents overnighted back. The closing documents do have to be signed with a wet signature. They can't be electronic for legal reasons. So once we have that, you can expect to get your proceeds shortly after. In addition to that, on your closing statement, you'll have prorated property taxes that you have to pay. If you have a mortgage on the property, these will actually be refunded to you from your mortgage company directly. So congratulations, you've successfully sold your home. I wanted to review a few tips to keep in mind during the process to make sure that you have as smooth of an experience as possible. It's very important to price your home appropriately, especially up front. That way we avoid any issues with the appraisal. In addition to that, if you price your home appropriately, you should expect to see at least some interest or some offers, especially early on. If it's overpriced, it can sit on the market and lead to you actually reducing the price anyway. So that's really my biggest piece of advice is just price the home appropriately and go by the comparative market analysis because that's the same thing the appraiser will use anyway. The second piece of advice I have is to allow as many showings as possible. For example, it can be difficult if you have a tenant living in the property that blocks showings or you only allow showings a certain time of the day. So just talk with me or talk with your realtor if you're in a different city about what the best strategy is for allowing is the maximum number of showings as possible. We're really trying to get as many eyes on property as possible. The third piece of advice, obviously we do professional photos and videography here, but if you're in a different city, make sure that your realtor is using professional photography because this is really one of the most important things. A lot of people will decide on a home based off the photos. They'll decide on which homes to look at based off the quality of the photography. So it's very, very important. It's a very small investment, around $100 or $200. And really it will help you sell your house for a lot more than having just, photos with your camera or not professional photography. Last thing is keep your home clean and organized. What I tell people is that you want to make sure that when a buyer is walking into the home, they feel it's clean, it's organized, they feel at peace there. It's someplace that they feel comfortable living. I hope you got a lot out of this video. I went over the whole process and then just helpful tips for selling your home. If you're interested in selling your El Paso home, please feel free to reach out to me, or if you need a recommendation for a real estate agent in another city, I have a great nationwide network that I can connect you with. Please like and subscribe, and if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Thank you.